As farmers and fishermen, it was important to the peoples of the ancient world that they understood the patterns of nature. What they observed was a series of simple rhythms, and they concluded from these that balance or symmetry is an essential feature of the natural order. But they also observed a second principle in the world, one which is just as prevalent as symmetry, but which seems to be an expression of increasing disorder. People grow old and objects decompose. All that's born, they observe, must die. Everything around us, plant, mineral, or animal, undergoes a gradual process of eventual degeneration and decay. Now, the ancient Egyptians understood these two principles as order and chaos, and they saw their conflict in terms of a vast cosmic battle. Since the dawn of time, the goddess of order, Ma'at, has been at war with Isfet, the god of chaos. And the Egyptians didn't hesitate when deciding where their loyalties lay. They became warriors for Ma'at. Almost everything the ancient Egyptians did, from the development of their social structures to their religious beliefs, their art, their architecture, had one specific end in view: maintaining the ascendancy of order over chaos. Death and decay were seen to be expressions of disorder, and from about 4000 BC, it became customary to mummify the bodies of the dead. Certain words spring to mind as we stand in front of this Egyptian coffin, such as symmetrical and orderly. On the front, with her wings outstretched, we find the goddess Nut. But in stark contrast to Nut's sort of flowing elegance, the figure itself is static and rigid. The eyes are fixed straight ahead, suggesting control or composure. The craftsmen who made coffins like this were expected to stick to a strict set of rules or guidelines. Their role wasn't to create an object of beauty or to satisfy any wider aesthetic sense, but rather to give form to the inherent symmetry of the universe. Now, the language of symmetry has many dialects, and the harsh reality of living in an environment which was by turns parched and flooded led the ancient Egyptians to speak of symmetry in an entirely different way from other peoples of the ancient world. Whereas the Mesopotamians saw invariance and harmony as nature's ordering principle, the Egyptians believed in a battle between order and chaos. Their divinely appointed task was to impose symmetry on the dangerous and chaotic landscape of life. Sometime before the 5th century BC, philosophers made an important observation about symmetry. Most people tend to think of symmetry in terms of invariance or harmony, but that's only half the picture. A definition of balance is the presence of two equal but opposite principles. On a set of weighing scales, for example, there are two pans of equal weight set on opposite sides of a pivot. There can be no balance without two complementary factors, equality and opposition. The ancient Greeks observed that the same principle holds true with symmetry. Without transformation or variance of some sort, either over time, in location, or in direction, there cannot be symmetry. By mixing together the opposing qualities of repetition and variance, the ancient Greeks came up with some of the earliest examples of aesthetic beauty as it's understood today. And this can be seen in their art and design. With this amphora vase, for example, the different parts of the vase complement each other while simultaneously creating contrast. They observed that rigid repetition, as favoured by the Egyptians with the pyramids, for example, is often stale and boring. In other words, rather than fight against a discord, which is an essential feature of life, they chose instead to celebrate it. So the Greco-Roman world had a more sophisticated understanding of symmetry than the Egyptians. And this can be seen in their different attitudes towards death. Let's compare this Etruscan funeral urn with the Egyptian coffin we saw a few minutes ago. Rather than being rigidly symmetrical, the figures here seem to be positively laid back. The panel on the front shows a man and a woman bidding each other a fond farewell before departing into the afterlife. Above them we find the figure of the woman reclining on a couch. You'll see that she holds a goodwill gift on her lap, a bowl containing food or drink. Now, there's no suggestion here of a battle between the forces of order and chaos, and no resistance against the inevitable degradation of death. The Greeks had observed that some sort of contradiction lies at the heart of symmetry, and the Romans believed that there was something sacred about this idea. Many of their religious symbols comprise of contrasting shapes amalgamated within a single harmonious whole. For example, circles within squares or triangles within circles. These symmetrical motifs can be found at some of the most sacrosanct sites and temples. Now, the Pantheon was constructed almost 2,000 years ago, and it's chock full of references to this sacred law of the ancient world. The building is wholly symmetrical. Left hand balances right hand, and the width is proportionate to the height. Yet within this harmonious framework, there are strong oppositional elements. The monotony is intentionally broken up by a balance of dissimilar proportions, creating a discordant harmony. Inside the building, further contradictions reveal themselves. The squared circle is a symbol representing the unification of primary opposites. And the main chamber is topped by a vast dome, which forms one half of the perfect sphere, reflecting the symmetry of the universe. This symbol is known as a taijitu, and it represents what the ancient Chinese believed to be the first law of life. Taoist philosophers observed that the cycles of nature all follow an identical polar pattern. With the seasonal cycle, for example, the days grow progressively longer during spring and early summer, whereas after the midsummer solstice, they gradually decrease in length. The dots are a reminder that each side of the polarity contains the seed of its opposite. So the growth of spring, for example, automatically generates the promise of decay. And this same twofold pattern is prevalent throughout nature, conditioning everything from the daily and seasonal cycles to the waxing and waning of the moon. The sheer obviousness of the pattern didn't diminish its significance to the Chinese, for they believed that the universal principle must be in evidence all around us. Now, coins or charms such as these were believed to possess special properties, for like the taijitu, they symbolize the sacred union of opposites. In the West, we tend to get quite confused by the idea of the implicit unity of opposites. It seems to us counterintuitive that they should be in any way connected. But Taoist sages from ancient China placed particular emphasis upon the oppositional nature of balance, so much so that the notion of polarity came to influence almost every aspect of their beliefs. Their proof of this ancient Oriental theory of everything lies in an elegantly watertight argument. The first law of life, they reasoned, must govern all the cycles of nature. And nature's cycles shared us one principle in common: polarity. Like other peoples, the philosophers of ancient India encountered both order and chaos in the world. But unlike the Egyptians, who saw the relationship between these two principles in terms of a battle, early Hindu scholars understood chaos as an aspect of a deeper symmetry, a symmetry of order and disorder. This is Shiva. As Nataraja, the cosmic dancer, he has several arms, each representing a different aspect of life. One hand upholds the drum of order and creation and the beat of time. And in another hand, we find the flame of chaos or destruction. Often he wears both male and female earrings, and it's not uncommon to find depictions of Shiva where he's androgynous, for he or she unites and transcends all opposites. Lower down, one leg is raised, and Shiva's stamping his heel to the rhythm of the universal drum. The drumbeat represents a concept of discordant harmony, or the simultaneous presence of equality and opposition, which conditions not just balance, but musical rhythm too. And amidst this dizzying swirl of similarity, contradiction, and paradox, Shiva's head is entirely serene and still. His expression is neither joyful nor sad, for he's the unmoved mover at the center of the circle of life. So there we have it, belief in a universal law of symmetry, extended from ancient Egypt, China, and India to Greece and Imperial Rome. And most of these people came up with this idea entirely independently of each other. And whilst they placed emphasis upon different aspects of symmetry, so in Egypt there was believed to be an irreconcilable conflict between order and chaos, for example, whilst early Hindu scholars saw a mutual dependence or a synthesis between these two principles. All of them held symmetry in such high regard that it conditioned everything from their art and their architecture, to their political structures, the layout of their cities, and their religious beliefs. Now, we've seen that symmetry is a central paradigm of physics, but a law which applies in one place in the universe must hold true everywhere the same. And life's ordering principle, if such a law exists, must be hiding in plain sight all around us. Now, there's not much evidence of an ordering principle here. During the daytime when it's busy, the cafe is always teeming with people. But let me show you something. This rather elegant and smooth design is known as a Gaussian curve. It's used by statisticians to evaluate probabilities in apparently random behavior. If you throw a set of dice, for example, there's a 100% probability that the value on the face of the dice won't exceed 12, and a 0% probability that it'd be less than 2. But with a great many throws of the dice, the most common outcome will be the number 7, which is midway between 2 and 12. And the normal distribution of numbers will polarize around this central point. Perhaps God plays dice with the universe, and nothing's more random than the throw of a set of dice. But even this can be seen to be subject to an underlying symmetry. So how does any of this relate to a group of people in a cafe? Well, if we consider factors such as gender, ethnicity, cohesiveness, all of these fall within the confines of a Gaussian curve. What we're seeing, in fact, is randomness and order coexisting as parts of a deeper symmetry, a dance of Shiva. And this principle is in evidence all around us, although it expresses itself in a variety of different ways. In fact, many expressions of symmetry are so commonplace that we take them for granted already without being aware of their significance. The 18th century economist Adam Smith identified what he called a hidden hand controlling the process of supply and demand, for example. If a shopkeeper undercharges for their goods, they'll be unable to meet their overheads, but if they charge too much, they'll be undercut. So what they seek is a midpoint between polarities. And the same principle can be seen here on the menu board. Most cafes offer a wide variety of different drinks to choose from, cappuccinos, frappuccinos, and so on. But studies suggest that too many options can lead to a sort of analysis paralysis. This process is known by retailers as the paradox of choice. Whilst consumers like to be able to choose, too many options can be off-putting. And in fact, paradox is a lot more commonplace than people realize. A shop or a cafe is a social system. Social scientists have observed that all such systems have two contradictory tendencies. On the one hand, they tend towards chaos, so a large part of a social organization's energy is devoted to overcoming entropy and maintaining structure. But social systems also have a tendency to return to their original order when they're disturbed. It's known as social equilibrium. Change in one element is frequently followed by corresponding changes in related elements, which work towards diminishing the original disturbance. This seems to us illogical, but if symmetry were the ordering principle, then it would necessarily have infinite reach and encompass everything, including itself. This would create a paradoxical universe of symmetry and asymmetry, of cosmos and chaos. Our universe, in other words, a place of infinite symmetries in which the correspondence of order and chaos is not only in order, it's inevitable. If symmetry has no deeper cause in itself, then the universe has been structured in the only way possible. Symmetry. It's hiding in plain sight all around us. We should reawaken to what we once knew, that its reach is infinite, encompassing order and chaos, harmony and opposition, and logic and paradox. This ancient interpretation of symmetry is as old as civilization itself, and I believe that the time has now come for a re-evaluation and a refinement of ages-old wisdom.